Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this Community Bonds Showcase. My name is Tim Nash. My company is called Good Investing. I'm a financial planner that helps people align their investments with their values. I'm also a podcast host. I've got a podcast with the Toronto Star called Responsible Investing for a Sustainable Economy. We've done 2 seasons. My fingers are crossed. They're going to hire me back for a 3rd season. We never know until it's finalized, but we've got a pretty decent following there. This webinar will be available online. I am recording as we speak right now, so I will be putting this up on YouTube, and we'll be sending out that link both to people who made the webinar, but also people who registered and who weren't able to make it. So if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome. So honored that you decided to click and are going to join us for this wonderful Community Bonds Showcase. So we've got 3 amazing presenters today. So we're going to go through sort of one at a time, 3 different community bonds, just to be able to kind of set the stage. I'm just going to give a quick little primer on what the heck a community bond is, because I think for a lot of us, it can be a new concept. So really want to start with that little bit of education. And so a community bond at its heart is a bond. And a bond, if you don't know what a bond is an investment instrument, and it's really debt. That when we buy a bond, we are loaning money to a company or to a government, or in this case, to a nonprofit co-op. And we are loaning money to this wonderful organization that is going to be able to use that money for whatever the heck they need from it. And because we're buying a bond, like any other bond, 2 things to keep in mind. Number 1 is that we buy a bond for a set term. So with a bond, we are buying it for a specific duration. Sometimes it's 3 years or 5 years or 7 years. Heck, I've even seen some 100-year bonds in my day. So when it comes to a bond, we're loaning the money for a set period of time, and we earn a set interest rate every single year. So it might be 2%, it might be 3%, it might be as much as 4% or 5%, right? And we're going to be earning that every single year. And then at the end of the term, we get our initial investment back. So the easiest example for a bond that I can give would be, we could buy, for example, a Government of Canada bond that pays 3% per year for 3 years. I'm going to be earning 3% every single year as an interest payment. And then at the end of the 3-year term, I get my initial investment back. And it's up to me to decide whether I want to kind of take my money and do something else with it, or whether I want to reinvest in a new bond. So really, when it comes to a bond, that's kind of the easiest way that I can describe it, is that it really is a debt instrument. We are loaning money, in this case, to some wonderful nonprofits and possibly cooperatives, to be able to do some amazing thing with that money. They're going to be paying us interest on that bond. We're not, this isn't a donation. We are earning interest on that bond. And then at the end of the term, we do get that money back and can decide whether or not we want to reinvest. From there, what makes a community bond community focused is that we are loaning money to nonprofits and co-ops that are really doing amazing work within our local community. Right. And now it doesn't have to be my community. I'm welcome to invest in community bonds from other communities. But this really is what differentiates a community bond from other types of bonds, is that we're loaning it to these, we call them, social purpose organizations, right, that are doing amazing things that usually take our money to be able to build or to purchase assets. Right. So it might be affordable housing projects, it might be solar panels, right? But they're going to have an asset that they're going to use our money to be able to purchase or to build. That asset is going to generate revenue. That's going to allow them to pay us interest on our loan, on our bond. And really what we're doing is earning that financial return, but we're also having a positive impact in our community. And that's what makes community bonds so gosh darn special. That, often as a financial planner, I often talk about risk versus return. And when it comes to community bonds, we still need to evaluate the risk, but what we're getting is a financial return plus the warm fuzzies, right? And those warm fuzzies are going to be different from everyone. But what we're going to do here is meet 3 wonderful people from 3 wonderful organizations who are going to tell you about their projects. Hopefully you're going to feel those warm fuzzies because the work they're doing is just absolutely incredible. And then, really, I want to, part of this webinar is not only to teach you about community bonds, but it's also to empower you to be able to really understand what kind of impact you want to have with your investment dollars. And hopefully it's going to inspire you to act. And really, that is sort of going to be our main call to action here, is that if you do want to actually invest, these are 3 organizations that have offerings that are currently available, that we'll be able to put some information in the chat, that these are things that you can actually invest your money in. As a financial planner, I want to be clear, I don't want you to put all of your money into impact investments, right? You should have a nice diversified portfolio, and we can carve out part of that portfolio for impact investments. Certainly, if you have any questions about how much you ought to be investing or how it actually works or how this fits into a broader financial plan, I'm here for you. Absolutely happy to answer any of those questions, but really want to get started with these organizations. The format is that each group is going to talk for, I told them, about 10 to 12 minutes for a presentation. They've got some slides there, so I'm going to let them go. If you've got questions, put them in the chat. If we've got time, we might be able to do 1 or 2 of those questions after each person speaks, especially if it's related to their specific organization. But really, my hope is to get through these 3 presentations and get to the end. That's where we can really open it up, have a nice, fulsome conversation, and have a great Q&A there. So without further ado, I want to start with Faye Martin. Faye is an incredible leader from a great organization called Places for People. And Faye, I'm just going to let you take control of things. If you want to share your screen and introduce yourself, I'm really excited to hear about what you've been cooking.
Okay. Now I need to put this full. Anyway, we are 200 kilometers north of Toronto. We are cottage country. We are modest Muskoka. That little bit of darker green that you see in the top right-hand corner is Algonquin Park. So we're tucked underneath Algonquin Park. We have a permanent population of 8,500. We're scattered over 4,000 square kilometers of rocks, trees, and lakes as well, you see. Those little arrows are the 2 bottom ones are our 2 villages, Minden and Haliburton Village. They are as close to urban as we get within our county. So we have a recreational economy, basically a 4-month economy from May Day, Victoria weekend to Thanksgiving. And so we tend to vie with Manitoulin Island to be the poorest jurisdiction in Ontario. Nevertheless, we were the fastest growing rural communities in Ontario before COVID. And then COVID really lambasted us significantly. During COVID, we had between a 16 and a 21% increase in our demography, depending on whose numbers you use. And they really, really did a job on our real estate situation.
Awesome, Faye. I'm just going to, someone gave me a little a tech note here that we can try up at the top where it says slideshow. You see where it says slideshow at the top? There's a little further up and to the left.
But here, yeah.
There it is. Do slideshow and then play. If we can do, no, don't do try it. Do play from current slide in the top left. You see what it says?
Left.
Yeah, keep going. There it is. Play from current slide. Let's try that button.
Yes, there we go. Okay.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Love it.
Jeannie on that one. Okay, so you can see that we live in a really, really beautiful place. We do not have, this is not a tent encampment, this is rocks at low water, but in fact, we have a really severe housing problem here. People do tent, but it's in the woods, you won't necessarily see them. They live in their vehicles, in RVs, in hunt camps, in cottages that are not really appropriate for 4-season living, etc. So now I want to go to the next slide. How do I do it on this one? You
can either, there's a little arrow in the bottom. There you go. That worked.
Yeah, I got it.
Perfect.
So a lot of people who come here, I need to say that although we have a 20,500 permanent population, during the season, the population quadruples or even 5-fold. And a lot of the people who live in cottages like this have no idea that the people who come and do all of the things that are necessary for them to have the enjoyable time they have up here do not live in houses like this. In fact, they probably have no construct of what houses they do live in. The differential between people who can afford cottages like this and the people who do their everyday tasks, again, was really impacted by COVID, because as you know, the three things that have been most consistently inflationary are the necessities. So food, housing, and transportation. And in this community, transportation is of huge importance. You can't work here unless you have a vehicle, and it would be preferable if it were a four-wheel drive vehicle. And as you know, that does not come cheaply. And so the differential between the people in the cottages and the people that make that cottaging life possible is increasingly diverse. And I will say problematic. There was a huge increase in quick purchase of real estate, and a lot of that real estate then sucked out of an already inadequate population housing supply of rental accommodations, sucked even more out of it. Anyway, that isn't quite what I was going to go to. Where I was going to go to is that lots of people think that living in the country is cheap. It is not cheap. If you look at this, which was done in 2022 by our health unit, you'll see that those numbers are not very different than probably where you live. And if you look at the brown line on the bottom, $370 for other basic needs, that's going to be filling up your vehicle with gas. And if you've been at a gas station recently, you know that that won't take very long to eat that up. And that is also all the other things that you need aside from food and shelter. So poverty here is real, and it's hard. And that is what tipped us into creating places for people. This is the downtown, the main street of Haliburton Village, off season. So it's not very booming. But in order for this village to be there when our visitors come, there need to be people year round. And those are the people that we want to house, etc. So this is why we did it. In 2008, we incorporated as a charity. Our mandate's to provide rental housing to households of low and moderate income in Haliburton County. To date, we've housed 34 families, which were 37 adults and 54 children. Initially, we had a lot of family housing. Currently, we house 14 adults and 16 children. We've gone to smaller households. The need was very much greater than we were making progress towards meeting. And so about 2018, we rejigged ourselves, and this is our current vision. We are planning to more than double our affordable housing supply from 12 units currently to 28 units within the next 5 years. That will support 16 to 25 additional people in Haliburton housing. In order to do this, we need to not buy existing property and renovate it, as was our prior model, but we need to do new builds that need to be high energy, and they need to be primarily smaller units, 1 and 2 bedroom units, because 1 and 2 person households is by far the most needful component of our population. So that's where we were at. In order to do that, I should say that when we were building our first 12 units, which is 5 properties, we always have used community resources. We've had no government support throughout. What we did was we basically had the community hold mortgages or promissory notes or whatever. That worked really well when what we were buying was individual houses or duplexes. But if we wanted to go to a multi-unit new build, where we're talking millions of dollars, we needed a more sophisticated mechanism. And so community bonds was the route. This one here. I'm not going to go through this because Tim has already told you what are community bonds, but I will tell you that we started with Tapestry, working with Tapestry in 2018. They were very patient with us because we were thinking that we would do community bonds for a new build, and we kept not being able to secure properties. Long and sad story about that. But Tapestry, who works with not-for-profits like us and has the kind of credibility that we needed in order to sell to investors in our community, has been there with us. They've helped us do all of our due diligence. They have made us ensure that the information that we had was what our investors needed in order to do make an informed decision, and they will manage our community bonds as they develop. What we offered as of July of this year for 850,000 kilometers, $850,000 was 3 series, because we wanted to be very inclusive. We wanted to have something for everybody. So Series A was a minimum of $1,000, 3 years at 3% interest. 2 was minimum 5,000 for 5 years, 4% interest, and C was minimum 10,000, 7 years, 5% interest. The thought was that people of limited means could still be part of the game, and that was important to us. And actually, a number of people who bought our bonds are people that I know do not have deep pockets, but they have a really pressing interest in making our community be the way they want it to be. The other thing I need to tell you about these two is that A and B, you get your interest every year and you get your capital back at the end of the term. C is different. There you get part of your investment plus your interest back every single year. So at the end of 7 years, you have all of your income and all of your interest. Well, so do the others, but you've had it dribbling in year by year by year. So different things for different folks. So this 850,000 that we are borrowing from our investors are secured against our current portfolio of properties. I don't think I said that very clearly. So we've got 5 properties. They are scattered around the county. We have 1 in each of the 4 townships for political reasons. Of those 5, 7 are subsidized. They're rent based on income. And the last 5 that we added, which are smaller units, are market housing. Going forward, we will do mixed demography. So some affordable and some market, and some above market in order that we can afford the other ones. Anyway, this bond raise is secured against our current portfolio of properties. If something went south, we could sell 1 or 2 of our properties and keep our investors whole. The book value of our current properties is about 1.5 million. We think the current market value is 2.5. Couple of months ago.
And I'm just going to clarify for folks who might not be familiar with these financial terms that the book value is generally what we paid for those assets. So that's sort of what it cost at the beginning, whereas the current market value is if we were to sell it at today's price, a reasonable assumption of what we could assume that it would be worth.
Thanks, Tim, for clarifying. That'd be great. So here's our bond raise. We launched it on July 10th of this year. We had extensive media coverage, both local, but thanks to Tapestry and their amazing capacity and networks, we got really good national coverage. I don't know how much that ended up with being bond sales, but it was really good and very useful in the community going, oh, I heard that you were on Bloomberry or something in Vancouver. It really helped us look not hokey to our local community. We had a very robust presence at 1 million summer public events. Like in the summer here, there is something happening all the time. And we just stretched ourselves incredibly thin to be very, very present and blah, 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 blah. Sorry. We also massaged our social networks, not too aggressively, I hope, but certainly assertively. And as of September 12th, we are 79% sold. So that's really good. We're pretty confident that by the end of this month, we will be finished. We've got a lot of people who've said they're interested, and every time when I'm out in the community, somebody says, oh yeah, I'm going to buy one of those bonds. And I say, well, you better hurry up. There's not much left anyway. And so hopefully that will spur them into taking action. Summer's crazy here. So we sort of thought that, some of our local people for sure might not have the time to do it until September. It might be interesting to know that of those 3 units, 67% of the sales to date are C. The big one, the 7%, the 7-year one.
The 7-year one. Interesting.
Yeah, 25%.
And that was the 10K minimum as well.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Which people think is pretty good pretty good returns.
Yeah.
And, maybe the cash flow thing was another consideration. I don't know that. The other thing is that when I look at who's bought, I can readily recognize 61% of the people there. They are people that I recognize in the grocery store. So the other 40% are people that I don't necessarily know. They could be seasonals, or they could be people from away. I don't know. Anyway,
it could be a few of my clients, Faye.
I hope it is. I hope it is. Or people that are in this very room. There's still 200 left. You can still get into the game. Okay, that's me, I think.
Amazing. You can
Yeah.
stop sharing your screen.
I can stop sharing my screen.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. If anyone does have any specific questions, by all means, throw them into the comment section. Again, make sure that it has the 2:: in the chat is to everyone, just to make sure that everyone can see it. We will do a bigger Q&A at the end. I've certainly got more questions, but I'm not seeing anything sort of pressing or urgent in the chat. So, really, I am happy to pass it along to our next presenter. Lindsay is here from Propolis Cooperative, Housing Cooperative, out in Kamloops, BC. Lindsay, take it away.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Tim, and for coordinating us today. My name is Lindsay Harris. I'm the president of Propolis Cooperative Housing Society. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to chat with everyone and to talk to you about our very exciting project. Before I dive into the presentation, I do just want to get started in a good way by acknowledging that Propolis is doing our work on the unceded territory of the Secwepemc peoples, and particularly because we're thinking about land and building on land. It's really, really important for us to acknowledge the way that these lands have been so well stewarded for millennia by the Secwepemc people, and for us to think about living and working and building here in a really good way. So the short version of the presentation that I'm going to share with you today, in summary, we're raising $1.1 million in community bonds to build Kamloops' first ever net zero affordable housing cooperative. It'll have 50 residential units and commercial space. And as of our last investment intake at the end of August, we have nudged just over the halfway mark with our campaign, with 566,000 invested and pledged. So as a brand new organization working on our first project, we're really delighted to have this much community response and support for our work. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about what Propolis means. If you've ever heard of bee propolis, that is what we are named after. And propolis is the resinous mixture that's produced by bees to fill the gaps in their beehive, to seal the cracks. And our team at Propolis is so inspired by this metaphor. We're inspired to build a community where no one falls through the cracks, where everyone has access to the homes that they need. Propolis also has medicinal properties and is protective of the hive. And we really see our work in that way too, that we're building resilience for our community. So a little bit about our organization. We're a brand new nonprofit housing cooperative. Our mandate is to develop affordable, sustainable multifamily buildings in Kamloops over the next several decades. Our development work is led by myself. I have a background in community economic development and a PhD in economic anthropology. I've done a lot of work in community food security and have really seen the connections between that work and the desperate need for affordable housing in our community. My partner is Miles Pruden, who's the owner of Next Build Construction, which is a small locally based development firm here in Kamloops. And Miles, with his work at Next Build, has won awards and accolades across the community for his innovative building strategies and his focus on building net zero properties. So like so many communities across the country, Kamloops is experiencing a major housing crisis. Our housing costs are escalating so rapidly. Excuse me. And we're seeing how this places strain on our social housing system, how it's increasing polarization and inequality in the community. We're also living in a region that's been hit so hard by climate change, with wildfires, flooding, evacuees coming into our community. All of those climate impacts add costs for families, and it's often the families who are struggling the most who get hit the hardest when those disasters happen. So our target at Propolis is to price all of our units at 55% of what the current market rents are in Kamloops. So we will want to offer a significant level of affordability to everyone who resides in the building, but really targeting housing for everyone, for working families who are priced out of the current market. So what are we building? By 2026, our goal is to build a 6-story apartment building, 50 residential units of a variety of sizes, located in the heart of Kamloops North Shore. All of those residential units will be net zero and will incorporate universal design principles. We'll use a whole bunch of different building strategies to make that happen, including thermal mass, nighttime purge cooling, solar heat collection, heat pumps, and drain water heat recovery, and whatever other innovative solutions Next Build Construction can come up with. This type of housing will be suitable for a diverse range of residents, families, professionals, retirees, students, anyone in our community who's in need of affordable housing. For those of you who are familiar with the cooperative housing model, nonprofit housing co-ops are owned and operated democratically by their members. The model is that members will purchase a moderately priced membership share to become a member of the co-op and move into the building. For Propolis, that's set at $2,000 for the membership share. And then they'll pay a monthly housing fee. Like I mentioned, our target is for that monthly housing fee to be very affordable. And members enjoy secure long-term tenancy for as long as they need that home. So how do we know that we can build net zero affordably? Well, we've done it before. You're looking at a picture of a net zero fourplex that was completed by Next Build in 2018. It's currently Kamloops' best performing multifamily building in terms of energy usage. And it's also often lauded by our city planners as a really great example of sustainable infill housing. This building was constructed at or below conventional construction costs. Most recently, Next Build Construction has completed a net zero daycare facility. The going rate to build a childcare space in the province of BC right now is $40,000. And this building came in at $27,000 per childcare space. So it's significantly more affordable in terms of its construction, but it's also net zero, which means that its operational costs over the lifetime of the building are going to be lower, and it's more resilient. Because it's energy independent. Tim has already given the definition of a community bond, but for us, we're calling them Propolis bonds. And so I just won't go kind of into detail again about what a community bond is, but just want to emphasize for us that community bonds is a way that we can use community-led financing to get a project like this off the ground. So again, our goal is to raise $1.1 million in Propolis bonds. The supporters will have the opportunity to invest in our project, purchasing a Propolis bond. The bonds will be secured by the property that we're purchasing for the development. We've done extensive financial modeling, also with the support of Tapestry Community Capital, to know that we'll be able to repay our bonds with the revenues that we'll have from 50 residential units, several commercial tenants in the building, and very excited to be able to talk to you about what our bond series look like. We have 3 series: a worker B series that starts as low as $1,000 with 2.5% interest over a 3-year term. Our Queen series starts at a minimum of $5,000, 3% interest over a 3-year term, and with the Queen series, the interest is paid annually. And then our Apiary series has a minimum investment of $10,000, and you can earn 3.5% interest also over a 3-year term. Just to give you a sense of the project timeline, we're aiming to acquire the property this fall as quickly as we can move forward with completing our campaign and selling out the bonds. We'll move into pre-development planning, do detailed architectural designs for the building from this fall until next spring. We hope that we'll be able to start construction by next summer. It's a really ambitious timeline. We know that we may need to push that timeline back, but fortunately for us, there are existing commercial tenants in the building that we're purchasing, which means that we'll be able to sustainably hold that property for longer if we do need to push the timeline back. And our target would be to have occupancy for folks in the building by 2026. So that's the quick version of the presentation. Thanks so much for the chance to chat about the project.
Absolutely. That is just so cool. I love what you're doing. I'm hearing a lot of talk right now about sort of the poly crisis that we're in with sort of all these different issues, income inequality, affordable housing, climate change, all these things are obviously so interconnected. So what I look for are poly solutions. And I feel like this is just such an incredible solution for a number of different crises that we are facing right now. So absolutely love it so much. I do see a question here. Let me just kind of maybe doing here for community bonds. Can the end date of the bond sale period be extended, as Lindsay suggests? What are the typical periods of offers, number of months? So, I think there are two things to clarify. Number one is there's the offering, when the way community bonds work is sort of the window opens and the bond is available for purchase. And then as we see, there's only a certain number of bonds that are available. And as soon as they sell out, then the window closes and you're not available. They're not available anymore. Right. So this is why it is a good idea to be able to buy a bond soon. I know a lot of people like to procrastinate and kick the can down the road a little bit when it comes to investing. I see it all the time, really understand that. But when it comes to community bonds, really you want to strike the hammer while the iron is hot, that while the offering is available, you do want to buy the bond before the window closes. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients find a project they love and they're super excited, and then they delay and they don't buy it right away and the window closes and they're like, oh, shucks. And they have to wait, sometimes years before that bond becomes available again. So, there's the end date of the offering. But then, in terms of the bond itself, that it really is a fixed term. There's no wiggle room. If you buy a 3-year bond, it's a 3-year bond. There's no wiggle room there. It really is on a very strict schedule, right? And then at the end of 3 years, you can decide whether you want to reinvest, but the terms probably will change. We've all seen, the changes in interest rates over the last few years that, that interest rate environment can change, and that'll certainly affect things. So, really understand two different things. There's the sort of the window, the availability of the bond, and, that can kind of, usually it's really as long, the window will be open until it sells out. But then the term of the bond, that's very fixed. That's something that there really isn't a lot of wiggle room there. Okay, great. Just want to clarify to everyone that we are going to be sending out the link. We're recording this and that we will be sending it out via email. So you had to provide your email to register for this. So you'll be getting an email from me tomorrow with a link to the YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube and you like what you're hearing, give me a like, give me a subscribe. My YouTube channel is Good Investing. So you'll be able to get all that great information there. I can see here another question. The 3-year term ends for everyone on the same date or based on when the person buys? Oh, that's a good question. My understanding is that it really is, for the offering. I don't know if anyone knows the exact answer to that, but I think that really it is about the offering, that, when people invest, it's sort of when the window closes, that's when, the timer starts on the 3 years. Does that sound right to everyone?
For us, our
Yes.
term starts when we process or when we issue the bonds, and we do that at the end of each month, which is just the process that works best for us with the BC securities filings that we need to do. So yeah, so there's an intake at the end of each month for us.
So if you buy a bond, if you buy it today and you do all the paperwork and you get it done and you send the money in today, then, it'll be at the end of the month, at the end, that's when the bond will be processed. And that's when the clock starts ticking on that 3-year term or 5-year term.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's for us too. Yeah.
Okay. There you go. I learned something new today. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay, let's leave it there for the questions about Propolis. Lindsay, thank you so much. That was awesome. I love the project that you're doing. That is so cool. But I do want to make sure that we get to Chris and provide lots of time for him to talk about his amazing project, because Chris is from SolarShare, and I consider SolarShare to be like one of the OGs of community bonds. This was like probably the first community bond that I ever learned about. Full disclosure, I do own a SolarShare bond, so I'm not sure when it comes due. Might need to check out my records, decide whether I want to reinvest or not. But I've been following SolarShare for a really long time, and super happy to have Chris here talk, because SolarShare is one where, you know, it's not always available, and the window is open right now. So we're pretty excited that this is kind of a bit of a limited time offer, that SolarShare bonds are available right now. So Chris, take it away. Tell us about SolarShare.
Thanks so much, Tim, and thanks for organizing this. It's a great event, and we're really pleased to be part of it. It's really inspiring to hear what Faye and Lindsay's organizations are doing, and so it's just great to see more community bonds happening. So it's a pleasure to speak with all of you today. Thanks for taking the time. Here's on the screen, you can see one of our projects that's on beautiful Manitoulin Island. You can see it in the distance there, a dual axis tracker solar system that tracks the sun as it moves across the sky. I love showing pictures of our projects. So who are we? Well, SolarShare is Canada's largest renewable energy cooperative. We're a not-for-profit cooperative, and we were established back in 13 years ago, 2010. So we own and operate more than 50 projects, solar projects across Ontario. We're just in Ontario. And those all have what are called feed-in tariff contracts. So that just means it's a contract with the government, effectively a long-term contract, so about 20 years, where they agree to pay a fixed price per kilowatt hour of electricity that we are able to generate with our solar projects. And so we have this really strong counterparty in terms of our contracts. What we've done is we financed those projects with more than $80 million that we've raised since 2010 from more than 2,100 members here in Ontario. And you can see some of the other statistics on the right-hand side there. For instance, we've paid back more than $12 million in interest to our investors over that time. Here's a picture, another picture, you'll get lots of these, a map of Ontario. And I wanted to take this opportunity to respectfully acknowledge that, you know, SolarShare's projects are located, as you can see, all across the province, and located on the traditional and unceded territories of many Anishinaabe First Nations, including the Ottawa, Algonquin, Ojibwe, Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Saugeen First Nations. And they're really distributed all across the province here, from Ottawa up to Temiskaming, down to Windsor. And so we have quite a variety of types of systems and types of equipment that we have on each of these sites as we've built them out over time with community bonds. Some of the sites are located on the ground, on arable land. And then some of them are located on rooftops, on commercial rooftops. So they're all quite large. Some of them are very small, like the 10 kilowatt one you saw in the first slide there on Manitoulin Island. And some of them are very big, like 500 kilowatts, like some of them up in Temiskaming and near Ottawa. So I wanted to give you a flavor for some of our operations and what we do on a daily basis. So in the top left here, you can see one of our projects up in Temiskaming. We like to work with local farmers who have sheep, and luckily sheep like grass, and we don't like grass as much to be that tall. We love grass, just not to be that tall, because then that shades our panels, and we don't want that as much. So we have the symbiotic relationship, and it's great because we have some local farmers benefiting from our land, and we benefit from their sheep, and it's really wonderful that way. We also, you can see at the bottom there, we have there's a little bit of snow sometimes in Canada, as you might know. And so again, this is Temiskaming. You can see the panels are sort of oriented in a funny way that allows the snow groomer we have to clear the way for the solar panels so they can move. Again, these are tracking panels. Not all of them do that. Some of them are fixed and some of them move with the sun. And actually what we've done is we've added a blower, kind of a big fan, as it were, onto this machine that can blow some of the snow off of those panels under the right conditions. Again, the idea here is that we can improve revenue by making sure that our projects are well maintained and clear of snow. We can work with farmers to make sure the grass isn't too high, and it adds a benefit for them. The one on the right here of that beautiful computer box is actually called an inverter. It's what takes the DC energy from the panels and converts it into AC that can be then put onto the grid, and that's where we get paid. This is what's called a central inverter, and we had one part of a central inverter fail a few years ago, and it caused all sorts of problems. It was challenging. It was during more COVID, and it was hard to get the parts. And so we thought we need to get an inventory of these parts and made sure that we now have purchased an inventory to make sure that we can keep our inverters up and running, again, with the idea that we want to make sure that we are maximizing the electricity we can generate from these systems and therefore protect our revenue. And it's been great. It's worked out really well over the last couple of years. We've had one instance where we've had to use one of the parts, and we've actually been able to lend a part to a fellow cooperative who had a similar system. And so that's been really, really beneficial from our point of view. Some other things that we do, we love to show our members and community members the projects that we work on. You can see in the bright red coat, there's our president, Mike Brigham, showing one of our systems near Kingston to some of our members. Again, these are dual axis tracking systems, and so it's really great opportunity to come out and see it working for yourself. We plan on having some more of those. It's a little bit late this year now, but we're going to plan on having some of those in the spring. Hopefully a rooftop as well as a ground mounted site. So if you're interested, you can sign up to our newsletter. I'll tell you more about that in a second. You can see down at the bottom there here lobbying for better energy regulations in Ontario and regulations around cooperatives. So we're at a cooperative day there at Queen's Park in Ontario with one of our MPPs, Mitzi Hunter. And then you can see on the right-hand side, we're talking with other renewable energy co-ops across the country earlier this year in Ottawa, which is a great opportunity to meet with other cooperatives and see how we can support each other. Much like the parts inventory we talked about, how can we work with other cooperatives to expand democratic ownership of infrastructure, just like Lindsay and Faye are doing as well. So some of you might know that the government in Ontario hasn't been enthusiastic about renewable energy, such as life sometimes. So, what we've been doing is, so existing feed and tariff solar energy assets, we've purchased a couple of those over the last few years, which has been great. We love those feed and tariff projects. It's very similar to what we already do. We are also looked into things like called net metering, where you can generate electricity on a rooftop and feed it back into the grid when you're making too much electricity, and then you take it back from the grid when you're not making enough to meet your demand. And something the federal government has come out with, the investment tax credits are really important on that front. The rules are just coming out now, so we're learning a little bit more as we go forward, but that's very exciting. We are working with our local regulator, the Independent Electricity System Operator, it's a mouthful, to looking at generating for capacity. So that would be something like battery storage. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen where we could own an asset like that and similarly have a long-term contract with the government to supply that storage capacity, which helps put more renewables on the grid. The other thing we're interested in and what we talk to the government a lot about is something called virtual net metering, which is where you can set up a project outside of your home or somewhere in your what's called your local distribution area. So if you're in Hydro Ontario, so somewhere in Hydro 1, and then you can buy kilowatt hours from the generator of that power. So we'd love to be able to do that. We're not allowed to do that in Ontario right now, but that's something we continuously talk to the government about and hope that we can get some movement on that soon. So that's nice, Chris. What are you selling? I'm glad you asked. We do have three options like our friends. 3-year option at 3.5%, a 4-year term at 4%, and a 5-year term at 4.5% interest. These are all simple interest with biannual interest payments. So in June and December, you get your interest payments. Our bonds, similarly to the others, are secured by our solar assets, so our contracts with the government, the actual physical assets, et cetera. It's a minimum $1,000 investment. It doesn't matter which one you choose. And it's a $40 lifetime membership fee. So if you want to invest once, it costs you $40. If you want to invest again, you don't have to pay that again. And in this graph, what you can see is our membership is in the blue over time. It's grown as we've raised more capital and added new members. The orange bars are the bonds that we've sold in given years. And you can see what we project over the next little while in terms of what our bond sales. So as Tim was mentioning, we will go on and off sale depending on our demand. And so just, keep in mind that we will go back on sale. If we're not on sale today, we will be on sale in the future. We've made it most of the way through our raise this year. We have about $800,000 left to go. Yeah, it's really great. So if you're interested, please do check out our website and learn more. You can get on our website. Here's a picture of our website. Real-time performance, you can see the middle screen there. Those are all our projects. We're proud to present real-time performance to you, so you can go and check that out anytime you want, any of our 51 projects. You can also, on our website, get our offering statement, which is a very important document. It's like a prospectus, basically, but slightly different language. It has all the information you want, and you should take a look at that before you decide to invest in solar bonds. And happy to talk to you about that if you have any questions. And also, please sign up to our monthly newsletter. This is how you can find out if bonds are on sale quickly, and also learn about other things that are happening in the community, like site visits, any workshops or webinars we might hold ourselves. If you do choose to invest, then we do have a portal which you can check your investments with and see what your solar bond's on. So Tim, you can check that out. I'm always happy to talk to you, but you can take a look too through our wonderful portal that our friends at Tapestry have developed. You can use it to purchase solar bonds and update all of your contact information. So that's it from us. This is our Holtby project here in Mississauga. On a beautiful sunny day. Thanks so much for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I look forward to the discussion.
Amazing, Chris. Thank you so much. This is awesome. Love seeing the different options that are available. Hopefully people are starting to get a feel for sort of the consistency of, these types of offerings. Generally speaking, I love that all three of you have $1,000 minimum, right? So that it is really accessible. People can, start with as little as $1,000, which is just fantastic. And that really, people can choose their own adventure, whatever resonates with you. Like I said, it's the risk versus the return, financial return, plus the warm fuzzies. And each of these projects, some of them might generate a little higher warm fuzzies than others, and, really want people to sort of follow their instincts there in terms of which ones appeal to them. I do want to clarify before I jump into the Q&A that just what provinces people have to live in order to be able to buy a bond. Chris, my understanding is that SolarShare is only available to Ontario residents. Is that right?
Sadly, yes. I'd love to sell to everyone in Canada, but we are only open to Ontario residents of Ontario. Mm-hmm.
Lindsay, my understanding is Ontario and BC. Is that right? That's right.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Amazing. And then Faye, help me out. My instinct is across Canada for you.
Well, I think so, because we had coverage across Canada. So I don't know the answer, but I believe it might be across Canada, which is interesting.
I think that's right. That's my instinct as well. Yes, I see in the chat, P for P
Oh,
can sell
yes.
nationally, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So for people outside of Ontario and BC, don't worry, we got you covered. We've got a wonderful community bond for you as well. Okay, we're starting to get some questions. This is great. People, please, let's get some comments in here. We'll go. I am aware of the time. I'm not in any rush. If our panelists can stay, a little bit past the hour, then we can kind of keep going through these. So please, if you've got a question, do it. I'm just going to kind of jump in here. So first question, just relating to SolarShare, someone asked, what is a feed-in tariff? And I can let me take a stab at it, Chris, and then I'll
go for it.
Clarify. but a feed-in tariff. So this was the old government subsidy program that we had in Ontario before we had Doug Ford as premier, who ripped out wind farms and some of the electric vehicle charging stations. So before that, when we were actively encouraging renewable energy projects, and the feed-in tariff is this idea that solar projects feed electricity into the grid, and they are given a tariff, or there is a fee, there is a price on that electricity. Some people, would refer to it as a subsidy, that there was a price for that electricity that was being fed into the grid. So those are the ones with like the government contracts where we know how much money we're getting per kilowatt hour. So those are sort of the juiciest solar contracts. And then from there, now, because that feed-in tariff has been killed by our provincial government, that now, we have to get a little bit more creative with these things like net metering or, using other funding models. Is that right?
Yeah, excellent answer. Two things. The feed-in tariff program was designed to reduce prices over time, because back in 2010, price of solar was extremely high. So the government wanted to encourage a development of that industry, and that's what happened in Ontario. So that's one really great outcome of that. The other thing is to not just solar and renewables in Ontario have a feed-in tariff or an equivalent of a feed-in tariff. Natural gas and nuclear facilities also have fixed price of generation. They don't call it the same thing, but we do the same thing for other types of energy. So it's not just solar. But yeah, absolutely right, Tim.
Okay, perfect. That sounds great. I've got another question here from Sudhir. Tim, if you could walk us through what major strategic work or quick checklist these organizations had to do before they could go out to offer community bonds. So this is a really cool question. This is a little bit higher level. You've heard each of the presenters refer to an amazing organization called Tapestry Community Capital. And Tapestry is kind of a common thread throughout this presentation. So I think this is a good chance to sort of shout out to Tapestry, because, really my understanding is that SolarShare, when started offering these solar bonds, had to like figure out this whole community bond process for themselves. And so it was TREC, Toronto Renewable Energy Cooperative. So when I first bought my bond, I got a bond certificate and it said TREC, Toronto Renewable Energy Cooperative. From there, other organizations started saying, hey, this is kind of cool. We also want to do a community bond. I'm a member of the Center for Social Innovation, CSI, which has had huge success, owns 2, 5-story buildings in downtown Toronto. How the heck does a nonprofit buy 2 buildings in downtown Toronto? Well, they did community bonds. Instead of going through that whole learning journey themselves, they simply hired TREC to be able to administer those community bonds for them. TREC kind of recognized this wonderful opportunity and this need, so spun off as a separate organization, rebranded as Tapestry Community Capital. And Tapestry now offers what I refer to as a turnkey solution for nonprofits and co-ops who want to issue community bonds. So, Tapestry does have some amazing resources that, if you're interested, if you're with a nonprofit or with a co-op or an organization that wants to explore community bond, I would really suggest you reach out to Tapestry to start that conversation. There's a whole ecosystem. Like, when I started in this field, it was really piecemeal. It was hard to figure it out. Now there are these wonderful things like the Investment Readiness Program that provides funding for organizations to get ready for investment, and that Tapestry has created this whole streamlined process. So I'm not going to go through the checklist for organizations because, there is a lot of work to do before you do that. Instead, I would just love to shout out to Tapestry, and that if you're with a nonprofit or an organization that wants to explore issuing your own community bond, I think that's really the first step, is to reach out to Tapestry.
Can I say they're
Please.
wonderful to work with too. They're very, very
Right?
good. Hold your hand. They respect your reality. They add what they know that you don't know, but they listen to what it is that you know that they don't know. It's very respectful relationship. It's wonderful.
Love it. Thank you, Faye. Really appreciate that. Danielle asked, which, if any, of these community bonds can be purchased through a financial institution or held in a TFSA? Oh my my goodness, Danielle, it's a great question. I'm rubbing my head because this has caused me many headaches over the years. So basically the way it works is like, there was a time when any financial institution would let you buy a community bond and hold it inside of an RRSP or TFSA at your bank, and you could just do it. Sadly, I don't know when it was. It was probably, in the ballpark of about 8 years ago, but I remember the week because on the same week, every single bank across the country said, no, we're not doing it anymore. Or if you want to do it, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg in fees. So the way it works is that, that many of these bonds, I'm not going to get into specifics, but many of them are legally eligible for an RSP or a TFSA. However, I usually recommend that clients hold them outside of registered accounts. That what I find is that the easiest way to buy a community bond is just to reach out and buy it directly from the organization. This means that sadly you are paying taxes on that interest payment. For some of them, if they are eligible for an RSP or TFSA, there is a path to be able to do it. You can do it through, I believe it's CWCF, the Canadian Workers Cooperative Federation, if I have that right. But I'll be honest with you, I've had a couple clients go through that process. The paperwork is terrible. It's a giant pain in the butt. It's also, they charge annual fees. So I've done the break even. You have to be investing more than a certain amount so that the tax savings are greater than the annual fees. And it tends to just kind of be a pain. So Danielle, sadly, I wish I could tell you, yeah, you can go to your bank and, there's an online form and you can just do it really easily. Sadly, that's not the case. That generally speaking, it depends. I can help you out with this if you want to explore the different paths and the specifics there. But generally speaking, my suggestion is to be able to just buy it directly from the organization. And it does mean that you're paying taxes, which I know isn't ideal. But again, I want to remind you of the warm fuzzies that we are getting from these wonderful organizations. Does anyone want to add anything about that question, or can I move on to the next one? All right, let's move on. So, okay, I've got a question here from Linda. All three of these projects are using Tapestry as their support organization. Yes. Are there many similar companies in Canada working in this space? Ooh, so this is interesting. There is kind of this impact investment ecosystem in Canada. It is emerging. There are a whole bunch of different organizations, and there are different kinds of investments. That Tapestry is really good when it comes to issuing community bonds. But there are other forms of impact investments, things like microfinance, things like angel investing. There's a whole world there, Linda, a whole world. So there are lots of different organizations. This is something, that I help clients with individually, that, if you want different types of investments, happy to go through the list. Maybe I can provide a quick link to on my website. I do have a free resources, which is my list of currently available impact investments. I do need to update this. It's been a while. I've got Propolis and places, but sadly I have not added SolarShare. It's a reminder for me to do that. I'm sorry, Chris, forgive me. I'm late in adding SolarShare. But I do try to keep this updated as best I can to be able to, but these are retail impact investments. Because there are some amazing other organizations that offer these kind of impact investments. Really with Tapestry, they do tend to focus on the bond side of the market. If you happen to be what's called an accredited investor, meaning that you're a millionaire, then awesome. We'd love to talk to you. There are a lot more options available for millionaires in this country. So, that'll be a separate list, but everything on that list is available for fairly low minimum investment amounts. All right, so let's see here. This is a question from Kristen. Hi, everyone. I'm with the Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Cooperatives. Amazing. Kristen, thank you so much for joining us. I'm very interested in this topic and the possibility of community bonds in Newfoundland. if you want to chat, please contact me. Okay, amazing. Yeah, absolutely. This ecosystem is growing so quickly. I think we're going to see a lot more community bonds popping up over the next little while. Okay, great. This is a message from, I believe this is Sandy. Thank you so much for this presentation. I can't wait for my board to watch this and get very excited about community bonds. Awesome. Happy to see that the education can be spread. This really is the ecosystem development is we need both more supply and more demand. So I'm kind of more focused on the demand side, helping regular investors, learn and, become inspired to act and actually buy community bonds for their investment portfolio. But at the same time, we also need an increase in supply. So it's really exciting for me to see that there are people here, both on the investor side of the equation, but also on the issuer side, or, the potential to be able to have even more options. Thanks for the webinar. Looking forward to the recording. Absolutely. Okay, I think this will be good. Thank you for this presentation. I will be sharing the YouTube link. Yes, help me grow my YouTube channel. Really, really appreciate everyone. I think that's it. We're 4 minutes over the hour, so I feel really, really good about this. I just want to thank you so much to Faye, Lindsay, Chris for joining me today. Thank you so much to everyone who listened and participated in the chat. It just absolutely warms my heart to know that people are interested. Hopefully you've learned a thing or two today. Hopefully you are empowered to be able to either, buy a community bond or to talk more about maybe issuing a community bond with your organization. And I really implore you to take some action. Reach out to these organizations, sign up for their newsletters, sign up for my newsletter at Good Investing, subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow up. And if you've got some money lying around, you're looking for a place to invest right now, please consider making an investment. Really, I can't tell you how awesome it is. I talk to people who make their first impact investment and they just get so excited making that first one. Don't feel like you have to, invest a huge dollar amount. Even if you just dip your toe in the water, buy one bond for $1,000, that is just absolutely a high five. Get comfortable with it. Once people buy one community bond, they are much more likely to buy another community bond later on. So, really want to encourage you to just, even just dip your toe in the water and buy one single bond is an absolutely incredible action that will help you meet your retirement goals and earn that financial return. But it's also going to help these amazing organizations continue to do the amazing work that they're doing, build these incredible projects that are just absolutely contributing to a better world for us all. So thank you so much to everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a wonderful day, and look out for that email in your inbox tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks so much
Bye,
for
everyone.
hosting, Tim.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And sorry about swearing.